Hey guys, Peter here to do an album review. Today I'm here to tell you about the latest from Cannibal Corpse, Violence Unimagined, out April 16th on Metal Blade Records. This album has 11 tracks, 43 minutes in length, and this is the band's 15th full-length studio album. They are an American death metal band. Now, this is a very interesting album. It has a lot of things for you to digest as the listener. Once you start listening to this record, once you start getting into the flow of the album, perhaps the first thing you will notice is how diverse, or at least how it tries to be diverse from song to song. This is not an album that you can close your eyes, lose yourself in it, and not really be sure of which track you're on. The moment you start listening to this record, you start to feel like each and every single track has its own DNA, has its own fingerprint. So they tried to pull you in 11 different directions. I don't think they completely break apart and take you down that path, but they try to do that, and that's enough for the album to offer some diversity to the listener, to be unique from track to track, and at the same time not to feel broken, and that's an important element. There's definitely a sense of fluidity with this record. I don't think the album needs the song that came before in order for the one that comes after to work, but the tracks have this effect of catapulting you from one to the next, and that allows the album to be robust, to move at a fast pace, to be fluid, to be dynamic, and to be very interesting for the listener, because you allow yourself to really appreciate each and every single song, knowing that the one that's coming afterwards is going to give you something that you haven't heard necessarily before. So you're always on the edge of your seat as you navigate through this record. Once you get to the soundscape, the album is heavy, the album is brutal. Once again, nothing that we didn't expect. The thing that caught me off guard with this record was the ability that I had of listening to the album multiple times and paying attention to different elements. So I was able to digest the record by layer, if you will. The first time that I listened to the album, I appreciated the album as a whole. The next time that I went through it, I paid more attention to the drums, then I paid more attention to the guitars, then the vocals, then the lyrics. I was able to break this album from a soundscape perspective into all the different elements that make up the overall sound experience of the record. So this allowed me to have a much better appreciation for the overall work, for the overall record, and then when I came back and put all the pieces together and I had the full puzzle in front of me, I understood exactly what this album was about. An album that has a very rich sound, a lot of depth to it. It has a big wall, it has a big presence, is demolishing at times, is heavy, it still has melody in it, and it just allows you to kind of lose yourself in it, but not completely get lost in terms of knowing where you are and where you need to go. So it's an album that from a sound perspective has a lot to offer to the listener. You can listen to this album multiple times. I feel like you're always going to discover something new, something fresh, something that perhaps just skipped the first couple of times they went through it. This is a very important element for the band, a very important element for this album, because it will make the listeners come back to the record time and time again, and the album doesn't sound stale. It doesn't feel like it's been overplayed. Like I said, it feels fresh, it feels rejuvenated every single time you press play on it. Now, within that soundscape, I felt that there were a couple of elements that really pushed it, or at least that ignited the force that the album has, and that is the drums and guitars. I love the drum sound on this album. It's pretty consistent throughout. There's not a lot of variations. This is not a record that takes you into different arenas from song to song as far as the drums are concerned. They're pretty much the foundation of the record, but they allow the album to be consistent from that perspective, and it's one important element if you're going to be diverse in overall approach, if you're going to be diverse in construction, and if you want your guitars to be a little bit more dynamic and think outside the box, you need something that keeps the album grounded. The drums did that. Then once you move into the guitars, I love the guitar sound, period. I love how they come across, I love the mix, I love the mastering, I love the overall sound presence that they have. Really interesting. If you're listening to this album with really good headphones, you can really feel what the guitars are doing, one coming from one side, hitting you in the other, and then you can hear both of them at the same time. The mixing on this album is just phenomenal from a guitar playing perspective. Really enhances what they did with the guitars and the overall sound, and how important they are to make this album feel as dynamic, as fluid, as explosive as it does. Then the vocals are the bottom line of consistency. I mean, I wasn't expecting Corpse Grinder to come in here and use clean vocals or go outside the box. You're pretty much going to get what you would expect from him and what he's been delivering album in and album out. it's another element that grounds the record. This is an element that has two bookends, if you will. One being the drums, the other one being the vocals. Everything that comes in between, which is the song construction, the structure, the guitars, the overall soundscape, that is moving all over the place. That is very volatile as you progress, as you move from song to song. But those two bookends keep the album grounded, it keeps the album under control, and keep the album inside the box as much as possible throughout the whole listening experience. Overall, I really enjoyed this record. I enjoyed it because, like I said, it was fresh every time that I pressed play. I was really able to break it down into the different elements, into different layers, something that I've never done or never been able to do with the Cannibal Corpse album. I felt like this one was easier for me to process it that way, and I got more out of it by doing that. So because of all of that, this is becoming one of my favorite Cannibal Corpse album. I just feel like it has a different approach, it has a different style, it has a different sound, a different way of being heard. And that to me is fresh when you think about 15 full-length albums. Now, as far as favorite songs are concerned, let's start off with Necrogenic Resurrection. Off to the races we go. This is an incredible track. It's a fast-moving track, has a great tempo, big wall of sound coming at you. It feels like a tsunami of sound coming at you from the beginning, absolutely relentless. It has a very linear approach as well. It doesn't really fluctuate that much or nearly at all. Doesn't matter if you're in the verses or in the chorus. It stays very controlled. It stays moving forward at a very great tempo. It has a more methodic, chunky sound. Once you reach the midway point, it almost works as a reset, as this bridge that connects the two worlds. And then the second half of the album is as demolishing as the first half. The only difference is that you have the solo section in that second half, but the track finishes off as strong as it started, going full circle. Next, Condemnation Contagion. This is my favorite song on the album for many reasons. One of them, the lyrical content. I really enjoy the lyrics on this track. It really resonated with me, and because of that, I gravitated a little bit more towards this song. I love the guitar sound overall on the track. It feels different. It gives you different looks. It gives you different perspectives. Still heavy. It still has this ground and pound sound. The drums ensure of that, and the guitars do a great thing, which is they partner it up with the drums to give you that ground and pound approach of heaviness, and then they walk away from it, becoming a little bit more melodic, and then they come back again. So they weave in and weave out of the overall experience that becomes this track. And that is one of the most important aspects that this song has to offer. The solo adds a dissipating sound, and it kind of breaks the track. It breaks the mold. I was not expecting the guitar solo to sound like this or to have this feel. But when you look at the overall track, if you don't have something like this in the song, it starts to feel like the track is not moving anywhere. It's just, you're just spinning your wheels. So the solo kind of worked a little bit like a reset and allow you to be reconnected with the song once you got out of it. So I love the heaviness, not necessarily the speed that the song has. It's a more methodic approach song, but I love the overall construction of the track. Last but not least, Bound and Burned, a track that mixes a little bit of what the previous two songs that I just talked about had in store for you, the listener. This one is a little bit of a mixture of those two worlds. You get a little bit more of a methodic approach, a slow moving process, still heavy, ground and pound, and then you get some moments where you speed up the track, where the track has a little bit more life, has a little bit more momentum, and has a little bit more strength as it pushes you forward. The solos give this song a little bit of an old school feel, not just in terms of how they sound, but in terms of where they were placed within the track and when they show up. It really makes the song feel a little bit more dated, even though sound-wise it sounds like a very modern, well-produced track. But the solos, just the sound of the solos alone and where they are within the track really gives you this old school throwback vibe to it. But I love the way the song is put together. I love how dynamic it is, really engaging with the listener. The drums really pave the way. They create the road, and then the guitars just drive upon it and really push the song forward. The vocals try to keep everything controlled, but the guitars are really the dynamic element behind this track. This is it. This is Cannibal Corpse with Violence Unimagined, out April 16th on Metal Blade Records. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles, favorite songs. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.